Good evening from Wiesbaden, Germany. My name is Billy Reinstatler, and this evening I want to discuss Fred Smith, the founder of Federal Express, or FedEx for short. When we look at the post-war economy, FedEx certainly a little later in time, really focusing on the 1970s and beyond, but an extremely important company with a global reach whose fiscal year 21, so 2021's revenue was around $84 billion. That is a massive amount of revenue. Operates in over 220 countries around the world, over 600,000 employees, and has an average daily package volume of over 16.5 million packages. So a very critical company which Fred W. Smith founded. The genesis for his idea for FedEx, which really is focused on overnight air forwarding or air freight delivery, was a 1965 paper he did as an undergraduate student at Yale. He believed that the current, at that time, air system for cargo, which relied on cargo as an afterthought, really it was focused, the airlines were focused on passenger flights. He believed that a system had to be specifically designed for air freight and air cargo. So that was the genesis. He graduated college and he spent 3 years in the Marine Corps serving in Vietnam. He was decorated for gallantry, earning a Silver Star. So that's I felt that was important as a officer myself in the United States Army, not the Marine Corps. Just want to highlight a veteran when I first started looking at a topic for this week's post. But anyway, he returned from his service in the Marine Corps in Vietnam, and he had inherited some money, and so he founded a small airline freight company, which would become FedEx from his inheritance, and he established it in Little Rock, Arkansas. And from about December of 1971, when he founded it, for the next 2 years, he struggled really to get it off the ground, literally and figuratively. Excuse me. There just was not the regulations at the time. The airline industry did not really allow him to effectively implement his idea that you could move freight at night when airports were not busy, and thereby gain efficiencies, as you might say in the business world. So as he established things in December of 1971, he then reached out the next year, early in 1972, to a variety of consultant companies, asking them to analyze his business and how he could be more effective. He had a very in-depth knowledge of aviation, really gained through self-study. He wasn't a pilot or anything, but he believed or he learned very quickly about airlines. And so one of the companies he engaged found that 90% of the nation's airlines were not in operation from about 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. And that there were over 100 large to medium-sized cities that didn't receive any freight overnight at all, air freight that is, overnight. And so this was really Smith's in to be effective. This did not work so well in Arkansas, again, due to the regulations and capital costs to starting up a large company. And so he had to shift kind of to ground delivery for a while. However, by April of 1973, FedEx moved to Memphis. And the reasons for this, Smith found through the consulting firms that Memphis offered a better market. It was centrally located in the United States. Secondly, its weather was favorable. There were very few days where the airport was not able to operate due to weather. And also the airport in Memphis was willing to work with FedEx to kind of redesign or make improvements to the infrastructure to allow for FedEx. So throughout the 1970s and 80s, FedEx was able to be effective as the airlines deregulated and they gained capital. They were able to buy some Boeing 727s, increasing their capacity. Throughout the 80s and 90s, they expanded globally, really focusing on technology to improve the ability to track cargo and improve their efficiency of delivering on time as they matured their routes. And so currently, what's interesting to me is FedEx has eight distinct entities: the FedEx Corporation, the FedEx Express services, ground, freight, office, logistics, and data works. As I mentioned before, it operates in 220 countries, 600,000 employees, 16.5 million packages a day, and a revenue of $84 billion. So Fred Smith's concepts, to sum it up, to conduct overnight delivery via underutilized airfields clearly has been successful. I think there are very few businesses, people, or countries that have been untouched by FedEx. And so he fought through these challenges, was able to establish a business, find the right location, and bring his idea to fruition. As a professional logistician and transportation expert, I suppose, in my current job as in the mobility section of U.S. Army, Europe, and Africa, I find this absolutely fascinating, and I think his business is something to emulate. Thanks.